Hi, y'all. I'm James Wright, and welcome to the shop, because apparently I am not Sarah. So yeah, it's just me tonight. I was hoping Sarah could make it in here, but she can't. Yeah, her job lately has just been totally, absolutely beyond bonkers. She's been putting in crazy amounts of hours, so she was not able to make it tonight to the live. So yeah, if you can keep her in your thoughts and prayers, she's having a fun time right now. So tonight we're going to be working on making strops. I need to make more of these, and sometimes I try to keep these in stock. I sell them, if you don't know that, on my website. And it's sometimes hard to keep them in stock because I make them out of horsehide leather. This is actually horse butt. Yes, it actually is the rump of the horse. Very specific leather that is very hard about, and I'll talk about it a little later. But I finally got another source that had some in stock. It's a little bit harder to find. So when I do find it in stock, I try and get as much as I can because I do sell quite a few of them. So now that I have another stock, I figured this would be a good chance to actually show what all I do in making these, because I've had a lot of questions about it. Now I'm going to be trying to monitor the live chat as we go. So if anyone has any particular questions, if you can put question at the beginning or something big and bold that separates it from the group, so I don't actually have to read down through it, I'm going to try and keep up with it. But this is a good chance for a lot of you to talk behind my back. My wife might pop in for a little bit as she is upstairs on her phone. But we'll see how that goes. So yeah, let's actually dive into this. Why do I use horse butt? You can get strops out of most any leather out there. Horse butt is a very, very hard leather, but still supple. In other words, it will absorb or it will hold the compound you put onto it. But it is a very, very hard leather. When you push the iron down into it, it doesn't deform. Whereas with most cow leathers, when you push it down in, it'll wrap around the tip, and that can round the tip if you push too hard or do too much. So with horse butt, that's not really a problem. Also, that makes it a little bit more aggressive, and so it's almost as hard as using MDF. MDF doesn't hold the compound quite as well as this does, and so it's kind of like the gold standard for strops. So yes, the problem is it is hard to come by, and most of the time you're buying a whole cheek, one half of the horse butt. And I have 4 of these that I'm making them out of. So I'm usually selling one cheek every other month or so. Actually, no, it's about a month, about once a month that I sell through those. So I try to keep them in stock, but a lot of times I'll call someone who recently had them, like, no, I don't have any right now. And I'll call another one, like, no, I don't have any right now. And then I'll finally call another one, it's like, yeah, we got 2 in stock. I'm like, I'll take them. So I do have these back in stock right now. About how long will one last? Honestly, if you take care of it an entire lifetime, the strops, if you take care of a strop, they'll last forever. It's not, you don't really wear out a strop. You just put more compound as it goes out. So yeah, they'll last you forever. Making sure I'm not missing any questions. If I miss your question, go ahead and throw it down there, because I can only see the top or the last 10 or so questions. So the first thing I have to look at is how exactly do I go about getting these out of this, because it is such an organic shape. It is hard to try and place them out, and so I'm trying to get as many out of this as I can. And I also offer seconds and thirds, which I'll be showing you how I make some of those as well. So I'm trying to figure out how can I get this out of here. So I've got a template that I made that is the exact shape and size, and so this one has the bump out on it, because I'll brand the logo on there. And so if I have it this way, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, I can keep going this way. But if I put it this way, I can get 3 high with a little bit extra. And 3 high is a little bit more than this. So if I can go 3 high, I usually do that. And I'll do 1, 2, 3, and then I'll move over here and I'll do 1, 2, 3, and then I'll move over here and do 1, 2, 3. And then I'll have a little strip left over, and whether or not that can make it into a third or a second, that depends. The other thing is, if I go this way, I might have enough space up on top. And so it's kind of like this weird Jenga game. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I want to do is draw a line, because I want to have 3 strops coming up here, 1, 2, and 3. I want to make a baseline and draw that off. So I'm going to do something somewhere around here, and I'm going to back that up to there. And then I have a knife that I have sharpened within 1 inch of its life. This is actually a carving knife. I'll show you this a little closer. And I'm going to use this just to score the leather. This straight edge is aluminum, so I'm not going to be hurting my leather knife, my leather knife, my carving knife. I'm going to set this on here, and I'm going to use this just to make a few tick marks. As soon as I get it in place, I'm going to go tick mark, and then up at the top, tick mark, and then remove this over and make a few tick marks. Now I'm just going to be showing tonight, come on, move over, there we go. I'm just going to be showing a little bit of this because to make a full set of strops takes most of the day. So I'm just going to go tick mark and tick mark. And then I forgot to make the top mark here, and you make the top mark here. And so I'm just laying out these tick marks of where this all needs to go, and then I can come in with the straight edge and score them all down. And I don't want to cut all the way through right now. I could, but I find it much easier just to score it rather deeply and leave a mark in there of what I'm looking for. Oop, where'd it go? There it is. And then if I make any mistake on them, they become a second or a third. If it's a simple mistake like a line or a mark or something like that, it becomes a second. If it is a defect like a corner or something of that nature missing, then it becomes a third. But seconds and thirds work just as well. They're just misshapen or ugly. Let's see if there's any questions I missed on here. I don't see any more questions. If you can put like question at the beginning or something like that so I can see it very quickly, that lets me know if there's anything separate on there. How much do you sell them for? Different ones have different prices. So the one with the logo on the top is $1 more than the one with the logo on the corner. And I actually can't remember what the price I have on them is. If you go to woodbywright.com/shop, they're listed there. There's a link right down in the description below. Click on that and it'll take you to the shop. But then I also have seconds and thirds that are cheaper and still cheaper. So for those who don't have a huge amount of money, I try and make it viable. So the next thing I want to do is I want to cut the top of this, but when I come across this, I want to leave this bump out. And I don't want to mark all the way across it, otherwise I'm going to have a mark that's going right through that bump out. So I'm going to put the mark on here, and I'm just going to mark in, and just mark near where the top of that piece is. And then comes the real fun, because I need to actually lay out that bump mark, but I can't mark it out with this because going around the curve is just almost impossible. So I actually use a pin, and I'll set this on here, line up my corners, and then use a pin to mark that. And the next thing I'm going to do on this is I've found to actually make these fit better is if I'm doing 3 by 3, then my next set are going to come in and they're going to be offset like this. So my next set will have the bump over here, and then the middle one will have the bump in between. So I can sort of sawtooth these together so that they fit into each other. So the next set will come out this way. But I've got this piece out here that then doesn't have anything in here, but this is still good leather right through here. So if I put this on here though, the problem is it's going to be cutting off that corner. And so in this case, this would become a third because I'd still have a decent piece of leather here. So I would lay out a piece. Actually, let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to lay out a piece right here. I'm going to go mark, and mark, and mark. And then that will become a third. And I'll show you how I do that. So I would continue on and cut out the rest of this. But for the time's sake, I'm just going to work on this right here. So let's see what questions do we have. Here we go. Does a strop need to have a hard backing such as a piece of wood, plywood, or MDF? Yes and no. All of my strops I have just like this, and I leave them out on the bench. And my hard backing is the bench itself. So let me show you like the knife here. The knife that I'm going to be working with, I keep it stropped constantly. I almost never take that back to the whetstone. I just keep it here on the bench. And so I'll hold it here on the bench and just use the edge of the bench. And that's all you really need to do. And so this was one that I made, almost 6 years ago, something like that. It's just a piece of horse butt, not pretty, it's just a scrap, and that's all you need. I actually bought one cheek, and I made a bunch of them and gave them away to a bunch of other people. And so that's why I have this one. So now I can come in here, but I found if I cut like this and just cut on the bench, this doesn't work very well, and I end up either going off the line or I don't get a very good cut. So what I do is I take the knife and I clamp it into my vise, blade up. And this becomes crazy dangerous because I'm always moving around. If my hand ever goes, I'll slice right down to the bone without ever thinking about it, because that's about as sharp as it can humanly get. So I am going to use this basically like a table saw, and I'm going to slice in. And so I keep it up here. And with this really, really crazy hard leather, I can cut up to my curve there. And then I'm going to use this, and I can kind of wrap around it. And I'm getting close to the line, but staying away from it, because I want to actually save some of that material for the other side. Here, I'll give you a close-up of what this is actually looking like here. Whoop. Focus. There we go. That's pretty. So I can, when it's really good and sharp, it just slides through the leather without any pressure at all. It just goes right on through. And so then with these lines, the nice thing about making that scoring line is it kind of creates a kerf that the blade holds in. It makes it very easy to then go right along it and slice it down to that line. Now this one, I think, is going to be too much to even make a third out of it. We'll see here in a minute. Clean that back. So I wish Sarah was here to look at some more questions here. So this one here, I'd normally make into a third, but I let my bottom lines go too much, and they cut in here and here. So if I cut this off like this, and I cut this off, yeah, see, that one's too bad to even be a third now. If I made a miscut like that on a regular one, I might make it into a second. But having a miscut plus the corner going out and a few other things, I wouldn't even sell this one as a third now. But I would do this one and make it into a third if I didn't have these cuts in here. So this then will become scrap for other things. Then I have these pieces that are just too small. I'll show you what I do with those here in a little bit, because I've tried to find uses for all of these scraps. Let's see what questions I got. I'm a bit confused with all the options on your site, how to order the strops. Yeah, I need to actually fix that up a little bit, because in the strop category I have strops and I have buffing compound. And so you can buy the strops. I have them with the logo in the corner. I have them with the logo in the top center. And then I have seconds and thirds. And then I have several different buffing compounds. And so they're all listed under there. And so you actually just have to go through and pick out all the individual things. I used to sell them together as kits, but then different people wanted different buffing compounds with different. And so I need to go through and separate them into strops and buffing compounds as two separate items. I just haven't had a chance to do that. Let me trim down a few of these and show you that. Let me see if there's any other questions. Hey, poor man, how's it going? When you pick which strop you want, you click the buy button. Yeah. Nice horse butt. Thank you. Do I have making horse butt tops? Question: what do you do with scraps that don't become thirds? I'm going to show you that in a minute because I've got quite a few of them. But I'm going to actually trim these up, and I will be down here usually for 3 or 4 hours just doing this. And I'll go through and I'll mark them all, and then I'll come through and trim them all down to their actual shape. Ta-da! Clean up the bottom on this one a little bit. There. We do this one, and I'll show you how we do the tops. And I've had a lot of questions about how I shape the tops on these because they look weird, and it's much easier than it actually looks. So let me zoom in on this so you can see what we're doing here. So the first thing I do is I want to cut into this arch. And so I'll just slice in, being very careful, my hand underneath it's going towards the blade. I'm not putting any pressure towards the blade. I'm just stabilizing it. So even if it slips forward, my hand doesn't go forward towards the blade. Doesn't matter how many times, this just still terrifies me. I have this incredibly sharp blade sticking up here. And this one slides into here. And this one into here. This should be enough so I can show you this step. Okay, let's go back to this and see if there's any questions in here. What do you use this strap? How many strops should you have around the shop? I usually have 2 or 3. Generally, I have one that's attached to my blade down. Don't grab it. It was falling. I've cut myself more grabbing tools that have fallen, and so now when a tool falls, I just back up and let it fall. Thankfully, it didn't hit the blade, so it looks like the blade's in good shape. But that happens. So yeah, usually I have one strop connected to my sharpening station. I have another one that is floating around that I just leave out on the bench or leave on another platform because I always have something that I just want to sharpen up quickly and I don't want to go over to my sharpening bench. And then I have another one that I have rolled up in my carving set, and that way it's always with those. So those are where I have it. I know quite a few people will have like 3 or 4 strops that are just lying around. I know quite a few people who just have one strop, and that's always at their sharpening station because they always do all of their sharpening at their sharpening station. I like just having a couple laying around that I can mess with. So I'm going to move on to the trick. And the one thing you can do, actually I gotta put this in here. I'm gonna show you 2 different ways. The way I used to do it with cutting the round was literally taking this knife and just cutting around it. And that was tedious. Zoom down already. Let's see if I can do this. Are you gonna let me do it? Oh, I think you're gonna let me do it. Hey. There we go. Hand there. Focus. There we go. So for going around corners with leather, I would literally start up here at the tip where I can turn easily, and I'll just push it in until I get close to that corner, and then just like a bandsaw, I would go around. The nice thing with this is, unlike a bandsaw, I can just easily push it. Come on, slide. But not push it too far because I want to actually meet that corner. So I cut this off right there. And then I can do the same thing coming around this way and get this really nice rounded corner here. But as you can see, if I'm making 100 strops, this takes a lot of time to do that. But you get this nice shape up top here that I can then put the logo on. So what I do now is I grab a scrap piece of wood, and I bought a corner round punch. And I've been keeping this sharp. And so the nice thing with this is I can put it on here. Let me grab Where's my knife? Oh, shoot. Oh, there it is. I'll grab a mallet. Mallet is what brings us together today. And I can put this right into there and this right into there. Set it back. Chop. Nice sharp edge. Do the other half of the circle. And you can see with this, it goes a whole lot faster to then just trim it up. I can come in here. If there's any little bit fuzzing on there, I can just trim it off like that. There, now you have a nice shape up there. And some of these, you'll get them and they have like this curve on there. It's really not a problem with leather. You can always bend it back into shape and it will then lay flat. So the other thing is, where did that other piece go? Yeah, here it is. This one, here, I'm going to put this away because I'm done with it. This one, normally I have them either sold with the logo on the top, just for a little bit decorative, or I put it in the corner like this. And so the corners, it's a lot easier because I would grab, where'd it go? There it is, it's hiding. This, and I can just match up corner to corner, set that on there and go, there. Now we got ourselves a nice rounded corner. So these are incredibly cool from Tandy Leather. Now the other question is, what do I do with all this scrap? And what I got is this. This is 1 1/4 inch hole punch. And so with this, move this back here, I can pound on it big time. I get these coins. And I've got a whole box of these. This is scrap that still need to be processed, but I probably have about 200 coins down the bottom. And so I'm going to show you something, because this is something new that I've started doing with the extra scrap, and I think I'm going to be giving these away whenever someone orders something, sending them in that. Let me see what questions we got while I'm looking at this. Why horse butt over? I talked about that a little earlier. Basically, horse butt leather is incredibly hard. It is a very dense leather that will not deform when you push into it, so it's not going to wrap the nose up around. Plus, it is porous enough that it will hold on to the buffing compound. So it's like that perfect of both worlds. What other type of leather products? Sure good to be... You know, the thing is a strop. You can use just about anything you want. You can use pine. You can use MDF. You can use any leather out there. You could use paper. It really just needs to be something that is hard enough that it doesn't deform the tip of the chisel. And it needs to be something porous enough that can hold on to the buffing compound. And so finding a mix between those two, anything that will do that, you can generally use as a strop. Now the nice thing about leather, I mean even cow leather, is you get this surface on here that you can polish up the steel with just the raw leather. And I'll be showing you that, because horsebutt in that case is actually a little bit more, it will polish the steel a little bit better that way. Once you strop, you can't stop. Yeah. What weight? The stuff I have is 9 ounce. So 9 ounce horsebutt leather. Yeah, I've never seen horsebutt leather at a Tandy place. So the next thing I need to do is brand these. And if you've seen my branding video, you will know where I'm going with this. Except for my brand is missing. It's usually right here. Nope, it fell out. That's why. It's down here on the floor. So this is one that I've made a while ago. And I used to just brand with wood. But then I thought, hey, let's give this a try. And sure enough, it works just as well with leather. So we can heat this up and brand it. Let me show you how this goes. And I find myself branding all sorts of things. Not just my work, but other things around, my leather. So having a brand in the shop is really nice. And I have a video on making a branding iron if you want to see that. Just had a company 3D print the head, and you can turn a bolt onto it. It goes out pretty well. Yeah, throw some buffing compound on your arm and use it as a strop. So let's see where we're at. Ooh, good. Okay, we're ready for this. So when I do this, let me zoom in on this one. I'm going to take this, I'm going to heat it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we make sure this is in line. Put it on there and brand it. Flip it over, it's upside down. Let's do it the right way. And brand it. And so that way I have the brand in the corner of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So with these, I'm going to be branding them. I'm thinking I'm going to send these along to people when they buy things. So if you like that idea, let me know. So just the wood by right on the horse butt, so it's like a micro strop. Trying to figure out what to do with the scraps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 seconds gives me enough that I can do this both sides. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just like that, we've got, here, let me focus in, the brand. And that was actually slightly twisted. I don't try and make them absolutely perfect. I like to show a little bit of imperfection. It's kind of part of the channel. So if they're ever so slightly twisted, that's it. If they go like 90 degrees off, then they become a second. But yeah, that way I can just have the logo on here. So a couple other things about strops. The strop I have on my bench, not this one, but I usually will put the buffing compound on the rough side of the strop because it holds it a little bit better. And then I leave the smooth side still there. So if I really want to do a bang up job on it, I will use the buffing compound side to polish it. And then I'm going to flip it over to the smooth side, and I'm still going to use the smooth side to do the final polishing. And if you've ever seen an old strop that they use for straight razors, it's just a smooth piece of leather. And if you really maintain it, the leather surface is enough to actually polish the steel, so you don't have to have the buffing compound. But if it gets too dull, then you need grit to do it. And so then you need the buffing compound. If it gets too dull for that, then you need to take it back to the stones. So let me see. Sorry, I got a bunch of questions up here. If I missed your question, go ahead and throw it back down in there. Jakif, can you discuss a few types of wood mallets you like to use? Sure, yeah. I have a whole pile of different mallets, and people ask me quite often of what wood should I use for a mallet. Any wood out there. I have mallets that are made of pine. I have mallets that are made of oak. I have mallets that are made of cherry. I have mallets that are made of live oak. I have mallets that are made of maple. And different hardness mallets are great for different things. So if you want to work on something you're finishing using a softer mallet so you're not denting the wood, it's very useful. A heavier, harder mallet is great for impacting. I am not a fan of dead blow mallets, especially with wooden heads. They just don't feel right, and I have not noticed any difference in impact or force transfer. I have some mallets that have split top steel heads, so it's a very, very heavy compact with a end grain of maple. I actually have a video on making the faces for this one. And I think I have a video out there where I actually go through a bunch of my mallets. I think I now have like 20 some different mallets that I use. This is the one I use probably more than anything else. It was one of the first tools I ever made. I made the head out of a block of firewood, and it's white oak. And yeah, a traditional joiner's mallet, English style, is an incredibly good thing to have. Oh, someone super chatted. Who was that? Not so slim. Thanks, man. Let's see. What's your question? Butt tokens or token butts? What a conundrum. Yeah, no, I've had this in the past, and before I had a whole box of like 20 pounds of leather scraps, and it's like I don't want to throw it away because it's hard to find horsebutt. So what I do, I ended up selling it to someone here. I put it up for auction. I think it went for like $30 for the box. And so I was trying to think of it, and I came across this punch, and I thought, ooh, I could make maker coins. So yeah, if you like those, let me know. Maybe I'll start including those. Apparently coins are a hit, so yeah, maybe I'll start including those with purchases. Or I'm thinking if I make enough that when I go out to meet and greets, when we can do meet and greets again, then I'll have those so I can hand them out. Why not press versus hammer or knife? Why not press? Oh, you're talking like if I had a press, then I might do that. That would be far easier for the coins. That would be really easy. If I had a press, I could just go. That would be so nice. But a hammer is a little bit faster, and just general setup. Unless I had a press that was specifically set up for it, that was hydraulic and powered. It really only takes a couple seconds to set it. 4 or 5 strikes, move it over, set it. 4 or 5 strikes, move it over, set it. 4 or 5 strikes. So it goes pretty quickly. I have thought about making. I've had several people ask me if I could make these with a laser cutter, which would make this much, much faster. The problem is, with organic shapes like this, you really can't set this up to cut laser cutting without a lot of extra scrap. And so I haven't done that. I still cut them all out by hand, and so they all have a little bit of an organic shape to them. They have ever so slight manufacturing defects because I'm literally cutting them out with this knife. Every strop that has ever been sold has been cut with this knife. At least every strop I've sold. Mine was cherry. Yeah, I've got a cherry mallet that I love for my finishing. What weight should a well-equipped mallet set include? A good smearing. Like my pine mallet is very similar to my rawhide mallet. It's relatively light. It's probably half a pound, maybe less than that. So it doesn't really move things. This is when I want to persuade things. I've got my carving mallet. I love this one. It's actually pretty heavy. This one's probably about 3/4 of a pound-ish. But then I've got my tiny little shop box, and this is a brass head. I think it's a 10-ounce brass head, and this little thing weighs more than this does because of the brass head, and so I use this for my carving. But my joiner's mallet, this is probably somewhere around 2 pounds of white oak. It's fairly hefty. And then my head-backed one, this one's probably around 3 pounds-ish. And it's far more compact. So when I really want to move something, that's what I grab. So a smattering of all sorts of mallets. I mean, you can never have enough mallets. Question, suggestion. Branded wood by leather coasters. That would be fun. That might actually be a bad idea for some of these bigger scraps. Doing a coaster, maybe I can get a punch out of that. I'll have to think about that. I might think about that. Leather buttons with safety pins. Yeah, I have thought about making a punch with the coins. Just hasn't quite fit into the shape. A drill press unpowered. A drill press would not, at least no drill press I would have. You would have to have like a 2-foot arm in order to have enough leverage to drive that down. It's a lot of pressure to push this through 9 ounces of horsehide. It's significant. Yes, yeah, all the branding from this is incredibly, it smells bad down here. Thankfully, I don't have much of a sense of smell, so it doesn't bother me that much. It's just my wife doesn't come down to the shop when I do a lot of branding. And I'll have, 2 or 3 hours where I'm branding continuously. So it starts to smell really weird down here. But thankfully, horsehide actually smells a little bit better than cowhide. The cowhide that I've done branding hasn't smelled as well. What can I do if I applied too much compound on my strop? You can scrape it off. Actually, that's what I'll often do. Is you'll notice that the compound, well here, let me show you this one. The compound turns from green to black. So I use a chrome oxide, and you can see the green coloring here. Eventually it turns all black. And the black it's mixing with iron. And so it's not cutting quite as efficiently as just the straight green. And so I grab a card scraper, and let's come through here and scrape off a thin layer of the compound. And that's about all I take off. You can see it a little bit on there. And then I put on more compound on that, and that's all I do. So it actually works pretty well. I don't do it that often. It's something I do like every 6 months or so that I have to scrape it off, and then I put compound back on it every 6 months or so. I don't put it on as often as some other people do. I know Paul Sellars, he puts stropping compound on there every time, but he uses a very loose cowhide, and so he uses the rough side of the cowhide with a very loose fabric. The nice thing about that is it holds on to the buffing compound really nicely, but it will also release it very easily. And so that's why he has to add it more often. So there's a lot of pros and cons to that. Some people really like that softer, looser mesh as opposed to me. I like have a much harder, smoother surface. Question, what's your favorite stropping compound? Chrome oxide. It's the stuff I sell. It's actually just straight chrome oxide. Turn that off. And I actually have a video on how I make my own buffing compound. And so I buy powdered chrome oxide and I mix it with beeswax to give it the right consistency and application. Butt bucks. Too much compound. Use a scraper maybe. Yes. I wouldn't take a wooden nickel, but I'd take a leather coin. Yeah, thank you. Horse butt coins. I wish I didn't have a sense of smell right now. My wife is just farted in bed. Yes. No, I have very little sense of smell. I have very little sense of taste. I like things that are very, very pungent, very, very spicy because I can taste that. My wife asked me, does this taste good? I'm like, tastes good to me. I judge whether or not I like something by its texture mostly. Super blurry on the close-up. Oh, sorry, I forgot to focus that. Oh, that's right, I had my hand up close to it. Sorry about that. Plaster knife. You can put a burr on one of those. Yeah, usually if I'm going to make a card scraper, you get an old handsaw plate, and that turns into a fantastic scraper. Just cut it up. I have a couple videos showing you how to make your own card scrapers if you want to see that. But the plate on a saw actually is a phenomenal card scraper material. You buy that online? Yes. The problem with buying chrome oxide online, and I mentioned this in the video where I go into how to make your own buffing compound, is it's like $30 for a jar of buffing compound for the chrome oxide, and then like another $10 for the beeswax, and you'll make more buffing compound than you'll use in 10 lifetimes. And so that's great in that you make it once, but for half the price you can go and buy enough pre-made buffing compound like what I sell, because I go and buy the large quantities so that I can make a large batch and sell them at a somewhat reasonable price. It's still far more expensive than you would pay online, but you're helping out the channel, so thank you. But yeah, it's very rare that it is cheaper for someone to make their own. Usually making your own buffing compound is far more expensive because it's something that only becomes cheap when you can buy in bulk. Like the coaster idea. Yeah, I might have to think about that. I might have to do coasters. That would be kind of fun. Favorite hot sauce? The spicier, the better. I love ghost peppers. Love stuff that's really, really, really hot that most people look at and go, no, I like that. I don't really have a favorite hot sauce because to me, all hot sauces are the same. I don't taste the flavor of a hot sauce. I taste whether or not it's spicy or not. The more spicy it is, the more I like it. Yes, Sarah looks incredibly short tonight. Yeah, sorry everyone. Sarah she has been working crazy, crazy shifts at the hospital, and so she comes home, sleeps, and goes back to work. So she is, she's upstairs in bed right now. So sorry, not gonna be able to see Sarah tonight, and I don't know when she'll be back for lives. Because if it continues like this, they may end up putting her on lockdown, and then it may be a couple weeks until I see her. So who knows how that'll go. How much compound is the right amount of compound? Just enough. Let me show you. So I got this and I got this. So this compound that I have right here, I've had this when I originally make them the ice cube compound. They're about that long, and I've had this one for 3 years, and 70% of what I've used was just on the sharpening the straight razors that I did, because I actually used it on the buffing wheel. Buffing wheel, you go through this incredibly fast. For a regular strop, a piece like this might last me 10 to 20 years. So you don't really need that much. So I've got this here that I just scraped off, and all I'm going to do is just get enough so I get a layer of green all the way across. And so it looks like that. And that's all the buffing compound I put on there. And for most of my chisel work, that'll last me for a month or two, maybe 3, 4. I clean off and I re-add my compound about once every 6 months, but I do that across all 3 or 4 of my strops. So depending upon how much you use, that might last you 6 months to a year, or maybe a month, depending upon how often you strop. But that's really all the compound that I use on there. Not much. Can't get it much. Oh, Stilton, yeah. Sorry, reading down through these things, there's any questions. Yeah, 6 card scrapers is another thing you can never have too many of. I've got, let's see, in my rack right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 over here. And I probably have another half dozen or so around the shop. Strops. Are you running out of room for tools? Yes and no. I really don't have any desire to get more tools. I go to tool meets all the time and I don't buy anything because I have all the tools that I need. And usually when I buy a tool now, it is more or less to show it off and to show people some of the historical tools and how they were used and some things like that. I have, of the tools on here, the ones right here, my saws, my main planes, and then my combination planes, my files, my chisels, my mallets, my drivers. That's what I use every day. Then the things that are farther out, the card scrapers. Then we have my spoke shaves. I have my scraping planes, my more fancy planes, the molding planes, my big saws. Those are things that I use a little bit less, but I use them rather regularly. But most everything here, with the exception of the molding planes and some of the weird files, most everything here gets used once a month. The main majority of tools may get used every single day. So I don't, really I don't have a need for much more than this. Do I want other things? Yeah, of course I want other things. I'm a guy. I always want more tools. But yeah, thanks, Alan. No, she's having fun right now. Twisted, sort of weird fun. I just can't get around to destroying an old tool to make a card scraper. This is from Nicolas Eisler. You know, I used to have the same problem, but now, you know, I pick up hand saws that are so far beyond repair, and I probably have like 2 or 3 dozen hand saws over there that are, you know, I bought them for $1, $2, $3 a piece, and they're never going to be made into a good saw again. Either they're missing a handle, or the plate is kinked, or there's other problems like that where, you know, it's good steel for card scrapers, but I started cutting into one of them, what, 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm still nowhere even halfway near cutting through one plate. So if you really want cheap steel, go to the big box store, buy a brand new one, and slice up the back of that. Just stay away from the teeth, because the teeth are hardened and they'll cause you problems. But yeah, going to the big box store and getting, you know, a $5 cheap handsaw, those work pretty well. How often do you strop since you brought it up? I strop, well, you know, it depends. I should strop more, theoretically. If I stop every, you know, 10, 15 minutes and I strop, I never have to take it back and sharpen it. You know, when I'm carving, I'm stropping every 5 minutes. I keep the edge beautifully sharp. If I'm chopping, I'll strop in between each mortise or that I'm chopping, unless they're big mortises, then I might, you know, strop it twice during each mortise. The more you strop, the less you have to sharpen. So 6 of one, half dozen of another. For my plane irons, I almost never strop them, just because it's not worth taking the plane apart to pull it out, strop it, and put it back. I usually run them too long, and then I have to spend more time sharpening them, but hey, I get to spend more time sharpening them. Do you have a video using your cabinet scraper? Yes, I actually have like 5 or 6 videos on cabinet scrapers. And I show different ones, the 80, the 81, I think I have the 112, or is it 212? I think it's 112. And I show how to sharpen them, I show making irons for them, I show them in use. I have quite a bit on those. So yeah, if you look up Wood by Wright cabinet scraper or Wood by Wright Stanley 81, you'll see those. Sorry, reading down. Any ideas on when the shave horse is going to be made? Sometime in the future. Sometime in the future is a pretty good guess. It is down the list a long, long ways. The next thing I want to build is a small set of drawers, a filing cabinet that can go underneath the desk, as long as I have enough wood in stock. And I think I have enough oak. I just have to go through and look at that. If I have enough oak, then great, we're going to do that next. If I don't have enough oak, then I'm going to be making a coffee table next. And then hopefully by that time I can go out and buy more oak so I can make the drawers. And then I want to make a rack that goes above the desk that I can put the printer on and other storage. So I'm actually making like a desk series with other things that have to do with the desk, and then possibly like a small parts organizer on top of that. The shave horse is something I want to do when I can make an outside shop. So I can have a shave horse, a spring pole lathe, and other green tool woodworking. I have thought about making a shave pony, but that's down the list a little ways. I think I have time for a couple more questions, so if you got those, throw them in here. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this up here. Here's the thing too, cheapos. Yep. If you have a new cheap saw from the store with hardened teeth, once they're dull, you really can't resharpen them, because the hardened teeth will destroy your files, unless you have a diamond file, but yeah, it's still not worth it. I need a better suede. Yeah, suede isn't going to make a great strop. It'll work, but not great. Can't wait to see the difference with the harder leather. Yeah, no, that was one of the things that really surprised me when I first got a horse butt strop, is I had been using just, you know, good cow leather, and it works really well. But trying a harder leather like the horse butt was rather impressive. You can actually get you can sharpen on this and actually get an entire burr to come off. Not just come off, but you'll create the burr, and it can come off while just doing that, which is kind of cool to see. Are we now going to see James's sharpens everything to fill time? Yes. I did an entire live probably about a year ago where we just had, we're going to do a sharpening live, and I was like, what do you guys want to see sharpened? And we went through everything in the shop. It was a lot of fun. Are skew chisels or fishtail chisels necessary? Necessary? Absolutely not. You can do all the woodworking in the world without them. They're just nice in a few occasions, especially like the fishtail or a dovetail chisel. These are incredibly fun when you're doing half-blind dovetails or you need to get into a corner. Let me show you this one. This is mine. I actually have a video making this one. This is a collaboration. He made the Damascus steel on this. I love this thing. It's so much fun to work with. But yeah, getting into half-blind corners, a fishtail chisel is a lot of fun. Not necessary in any way, shape, or form, just fun. So don't feel like you have to make one in order to do good joinery work. Most of the tools up here are not necessary. If I had a number 4, a couple chisels, a mallet, a brace and bit, and 2 decent saws, one big saw, one little saw, and maybe a couple files, I could make pretty much anything out there. I've done carving with just bench chisels. Everything else just makes the job easier. And so you kind of have to ask yourself, do I need to spend the money to make this easier for me, or do I rather just spend the time and use something that's a little bit more difficult? And everything falls into that one way or the other. What style shave horse? I want to build a full-size shave horse, and I haven't figured out what style exactly I want for that, but I'm thinking about making a shave pony, which actually it stands vertically. You put it in your bench, lock it into a vise, and it will then hold out, and there's still a footrest that goes underneath the bench, so you can put that down and the jaw clamps down on it so you can pull back towards yourself. So rather than having a bed that it lays on, it's kind of like free open out here, but it makes it easier to draw on. So usually when I need to do draw work, I'll actually grab one of my hand screw clamps and I'll put that in the vise and I'll just clamp something down and I'll draw against that. The nice thing about having a shave pony is just faster. You lift up, you slide it around, you step back down, and you can keep going on it. If my plane iron edge is a bit too skew, would it be better to just grind it, or should I take my... No, if it's slightly skewed, don't worry about it. That's why there's a lateral adjuster on the plane. When you're hand sharpening, they're always going to be skewed slightly one way or the other, and that's perfectly fine. That's completely normal. There's a lateral adjuster to fix that out. But what you want to do is when you notice that it's skewed one way or the other, when you're sharpening it, just think about putting pressure on the side that's longer. So if it's skewed where the left side sticks out farther, then just put a little bit more pressure on that side. And after sharpening it 4 or 5 times, you'll notice it comes back into square. So it's really not something you need to worry about. As long as your lateral adjuster can make up for the difference, go for it. The skew is not a problem at all. Ooh, Alan, you got the pieces glued up. Cool. Hopefully that joinery method of planing both at the same time works out well. Yeah, he had a problem. He's making several planks for a tabletop, and he was jointing one and jointing the other, and every time they came together, they just weren't quite meeting. There'd be gaps in different places. And so what you can do is take both of them and put them together, flush up all the tops, and plane both at the same time. That way, if the plane tilts one way or the other, it's going to give you the same angle on both boards. That way, when you bring them down and put them together, you have the exact same mating surface all the way along them. Okay, good. Well, good night. Cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this up here unless I see... yeah. So this was kind of fun to play with this. It was one of these kind of catch-all things, and I had to make a bunch of strops, and I've had a bunch of people asking me how I go about it, so I thought that would be kind of fun to fit in there. If you have any ideas for lives, let me know. I'm probably going to be doing another live. Let's see, today's Wednesday. I'll probably be doing another live Friday, where I'm just kind of hanging out in the shop and working on a few things, because I've got a lot. I'm getting close to finishing on the desk, so we'll be doing that. So if you want to see information about lives coming out, go on the Wood by Right Hive Mind group on Facebook, and I put up a lot of information on there like, hey guys, I'm going to be going live in a little bit here if you want to come and hang out in the shop. Also, if you are a patron on Patreon or a member here on Wood by Right, I do live hangouts where I actually can see what you're doing in your shop and you see what I'm doing in my shop and kind of play out through the day. We had one earlier today. It was a lot of fun to see what's going on with you guys. So cool. Oh, there's a last minute question. Do you prefer tang or socket chisels? I much prefer tang chisels. I'm not a fan of socket chisels. A lot of people out there absolutely love socket chisels, so it's completely a personal preference. But for me, tangs all the way. Why? Tangs just feel good. You don't have to worry about them coming off. People say a socket chisel is great because you can switch out the handle. I have never, ever had a desire to switch out the handle. Yeah, if I want a different handle on a chisel, it's because I don't like the handle that's on there. So I'm going to make a different handle and make the handle that I want to make for it. But yeah, I'm not a fan of socket chisels. So I think that's about it. So I think we'll wrap this up for tonight. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Oh wait, Sarah's not here to turn off. I got to go turn it off. Well, thanks everyone for coming. This was fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next time, as we all have this crazy thing here. So, until next time.